Hey guys, welcome to module 4. This module is all about manual mode. So, this is probably the point in your course taking process that you need to make sure that you're coffeeed up, you're hydrated, you have your fancy pen and notebook out, and you have printed the PDFs for this module. This is the meat and potatoes of the course. This is the module that's going to be the biggest game changer for you guys because we're going to talk all about manual mode and taking it off of auto on your camera and manually adjusting the settings for yourself so you can create the images that you want. So, in this module, you will learn how to achieve correct exposure using manual mode, my 3-step simple system, all about aperture and all about ISO, all about shutter speed. So you're going to be learning all the things in this module. So here we go. Let's start off with asking the question, what in the world is manual mode? So manual mode is simply a mode on your camera that lets you have a 100% control of how the final image will look. This is the mode that professionals use. So it's the one that you want to have if you want those professional looking images, which I think you do because you bought this course. So once you learn the simplicity of manual mode, you'll never shoot in anything else. I promise you, there are other modes like aperture priority and shutter priority and all the things, but when you learn how simple this can be, you're going to keep it on manual mode forever and ever and ever. So the way that I teach manual mode, I teach it as a 3-step system because for me, steps make sense. Steps, if I can go step 1, step 2, step 3, I get my final product. For me, that is the most simple way to do things. If you've been in photography land for any period of time, you may have heard of the exposure triangle and how apertures at the top and blah blah blah. But for me, when I was learning manual mode and then like somebody threw in a shape at me, I was just like, whoa, hold on. Like, I'm just trying to figure this all out. And now you're going to like throw a shape in the middle of everything. So I kind of like just pushed that aside and created my own little 3-step system. And my 3-step system is simply this. We first set our aperture. We then set our ISO. We then set our shutter speed. Aperture, ISO, and shutter speed in this order. And there's going to be a reason why it's going to be in this order. And so you're like, okay, Brittany, this is a little bit too much. Like, how I'm going to remember aperture, ISO, and shutter speed. What if I do shutter speed first? All the things. So here's how I remembered it when I was teaching myself. AIS. And I'm going to tell you a quick little story about my mother and how she raised me and my siblings. So before church, every single morning, like we were kids, we fiddled around, we were trying to get dressed. My mom was getting dressed. Also, backstory, my dad was a pastor. So my dad was out of the house. He still is a pastor, but my dad's out of the house by like 7 a.m. on Sunday mornings. So it was up to my mom to get her dressed, all of us kids dressed, looking decent, going to church every single morning. So, like kids do, we would fight, we would waste time, we would, take an hour eating our Cheerios. And so my mom got to a point in her parenting and motherhood life where she was just sick and tired of constantly getting on our butts to get dressed and get in the car. So she would just simply yell out AIS in 5 minutes. And what that meant was that our A better be in the seat in 5 minutes because that's when she's leaving. This was every Sunday morning from my whole childhood. She would just scream AIS in 20 minutes, AIS in 10 minutes. And that meant our A better be in the seat, which meant the car seat, in this amount of time. And we knew our shoes had to be on, we had to be dressed, our teeth had to be brushed, all that. And she was driving out of the driveway in 5 minutes. And if we weren't in the car, we were going to get it. So this is how I remember aperture, ISO, and shutter speed in that order. I just say to myself, AIS over and over and over again, especially when I was starting out. I would set A, then I, then S, AIS. I would say that over and over and over again. So, like I said, before I take a shot, and still to this day, sometimes I have to remind myself, before I take a shot, I set my aperture first, my A. Then I set my ISO second. Then I lastly set my S, shutter speed. And the shutter speed is what's going to help us know how to meter to 0. That's what we use. And I'm going to dive way deep into each one of these things, because right now you're like, ISO, what the heck does that even mean, Brittany? Promise you, in the next 20 minutes, you will be a master at setting your ISO. So I just wanted to quickly tell you those 3 things, that 3-step system. It's simple. You can remember it. And guys, here's the cool part about manual mode. Manual mode boils down to making 2 simple decisions to get a professional looking image with a creamy, blurry background. That's what it boils down to. So here are those decisions. Decision 1, how many people do I need in focus? That's going to be your first decision. That's the first question I ask myself before I shoot anything, before I shoot a bride, before I shoot a couple, before I shoot a bridal party, before I shoot a ceremony, before I shoot a huge family formal portrait. How many people do I need in focus? That's going to be my first decision. This will help me set my aperture. So the answer to that question, how many people do I need in focus? How many objects do I need in focus? That answer will help you set your aperture, which we'll talk about in lesson 1. Decision 2 is this question: how much light do I have around me? The answer to this will help you decide your ISO. How much light do I have around me? That answer will help you make your second decision. And so as we learn about aperture, ISO, and shutter speed, just remember AIS to help you know which decision to make first. And that's it, you guys. It's super simple. I think a lot of people, a lot of professors, a lot of colleges, they try to make manual mode this like scary thing. Other professional photographers, they try to tell other people, oh, like manual mode, like they have this like, you know, secret brain that only like technical creative photographers, like, no, manual mode is simple, and I'm going to teach you how to make it simple. So are you ready for the next lesson? We're going to be talking all about aperture, which is our very first decision. And aperture is probably going to be the biggest game changer lesson in the manual mode creation. So here we go. I'm super excited. Get out your notebook. It's about to go down.